Hello there. Welcome into a Wednesday edition of the show. So glad to have you, whether you're listening on Extra Sports 1300 or our new home on 740 KVOR. A veritable cornucopia of sports topics await you over the course of this program, and I'd love to get your thoughts. You can call or text into the show at 719 24/7 1313, or if you're watching the show on our social media platforms, regardless of whether it's Extra or KVOR that you're listening on, you can do that. And I'll even display them on the live stream because technology. Lot to get to, so let's get down to it, and let's start with the Denver Nuggets, who just keep doing it without the world's best player.
Murray gets double teamed, throws out of it, over to Peyton Watson. Watson fadeaway jump shot. Good! 116 to 114. Denver leads it by 2.
Jason Kosmicki on the call, as heard on Extra Sports 1300. The Denver Nuggets have won 5 of their last 6 games without Nikola Jokic. Last night, it was a 122-116 win over the New Orleans Pelicans. Jamal Murray led the way, as he tends to do, although he's been in and out of the lineup as of late. But when he's in there, he's leading the way, especially since Nikola Jokic got hurt. A game-high 35 points along with 9 assists. And I continue to contend that Jamal Murray's play, both before and now after Nikola Jokic's injury, is the biggest story right now with the Denver Nuggets. Because this Jamal Murray is not only an all-star, which he's never been, but this Jamal Murray also, with a healthy Nikola Jokic, can win the Denver Nuggets a title. But David Adelman is quick to point out that it's not just Jamal that's chipping in here, as great as Murray has been.
If there's guys having better years out there, bring it to my attention. He's been incredible, the efficiency. And, I don't want to not mention somebody because everybody played well tonight, but Jalen Pickett did a huge 3, 4 for 7 from beyond the arc, helped us run our offense, got Jamal off the ball. So just everybody that played, I just thought they impacted the game in some way. But yeah, Tim as the 6th man of the year, it makes a lot of sense with his impact on our team so far, especially with the injuries we've had and what he has done for us in the minutes he's playing. He's not old, but he's not young, and he's playing a lot of minutes. So, yeah, just proud of the group.
Tim being, of course, Tim Hardaway Jr., who had 18 points off the bench last night in that Nuggets win. And that's the new campaign. Scott Hastings of Altitude asked that question to David Adelman last night. Basically, is it too soon to start talking about Tim Hardaway as the 6th man of the year? I agree with David Adelman. It's not. And given how much attention the Nuggets second unit receives, maybe more attention than any bench unit anywhere else in the National Basketball Association. If somebody is playing well off of that bench for the Nuggets, why shouldn't they be in the conversation for 6th man of the year? There are others. How about Peyton Watson? What is his eligibility for this award look like when everyone is healthy? Peyton Watson last night had his second 30-point game since Nikola Jokic went out, 31 points last night. And if you remember, it was the last meeting with the Pelicans where Peyton Watson kind of broke out. He scored 30 against the Pels the last time. And he's just sustained it. He's won Western Conference Player of the Week, and he started off this week incredibly well. And the Denver Nuggets sent out a graphic on social media, and they're well versed in this because we do a lot of number manipulation, a lot of fun with numbers because of Nikola Jokic. So it's a lot to kind of digest here, but bear with me because I do think it is significant what this means. Peyton Watson, since the 2001-2002 season, is one of only 3 players in a 5-game span to get over 125 points, over 15 blocks and steals, over 15 made 3-pointers, and shoot over 60% from 3. Okay, it's a lot of numbers, I grant you, but it's a lot of different categories in which Peyton Watson has been impactful. There are 2 other players since 2002 who have put up a 5-game span like this, and their names are Kevin Durant and Kobe Bryant. Okay, yes, it's a little number manipulation, and we can use stats to make our point. It's one of our favorite things to do, to use numbers to hype up or to tear down the athlete of our choosing. But the fact that Peyton Watson, okay, this is not about Peyton Watson being the next KD or Kobe, but this is about a guy who, up until this point, you couldn't even fathom Peyton Watson doing anything Kevin Durant or Kobe Bryant have done. Anything. Especially when it comes to scoring the basketball. So that's my big takeaway from that, it's not alphabet soup, number soup that the Nuggets put out on social media. Peyton Watson has done something over a 5-game span that Kevin Durant and Kobe Bryant have done. And thinking about what Peyton Watson was coming out of UCLA, a guy that had a lot of upside, but that upside being his athleticism on the defensive end. And Peyton Watson talked about this the other night. There were a lot of doubts that Peyton Watson could become a bona fide NBA scorer. So to see what Peyton Watson is doing on a nightly basis, it's remarkable. And I've talked about the maybe conundrum that is approaching for the Denver Nuggets because Peyton Watson is in a contract year. He's a restricted free agent, but he's going to get paid at some point here in the very near future, and the Nuggets have to decide if that's going to be them. So I don't really want to go back into that. What I will go into is, what does this mean for this year? That was the question that stuck in my head last night watching this game. Okay, what does this mean for this year's Nuggets? I get that they got to make a decision on Peyton Watson moving forward. In a question of whether Peyton Watson is this from now on. Let's just talk about whether Peyton Watson can be this for the rest of this year. Okay, what does this mean for the Denver Nuggets? What we are seeing, not just from Peyton Watson, but from the Denver Nuggets in general, while Nikola Jokic has been out. And what I think the takeaway for this year is that the Denver Nuggets have 3 players that can affect the momentum of a basketball game. Prior to this year, Jamal Murray was that really the only guy, right? And when I talk about affecting momentum, it's through big shots, right? It's through those Murray flurries, like going on a little bit of a run that Jamal Murray likes to do. I mean, Nikola Jokic controls the basketball game, but he's not, and he can take over a game as well, but they ask Nikola Jokic to do so much. I think when I'm talking about the momentum affecting players or the players that can affect momentum, I'm thinking of scoring. Okay, and when Nikola Jokic impacts the game, he impacts the game in so many other different ways besides scoring. Jamal Murray, for a long time was that guy. Okay, you need a boost. You need to go on a run. You need to shift the momentum back in your direction. You need to push a lead out even further. That would be a moment where you call upon Jamal Murray, right? Because he can get hot. He can knock down 3, 4, 5 shots in a row. And suddenly you've erased a 10-point deficit, or you've turned a 5-point lead into a 15-point lead. Now they have 3 players that can do that to varying levels. Tim Hardaway is a player that can get hot. We've seen it over the last few games that when Tim Hardaway gets hot, watch out. And now you have Peyton Watson. And last night, it was late in the second quarter. Jamal Murray is off the floor. Peyton Watson is on the floor. Nuggets are down by, I think, 11 points. Peyton Watson is leading the Denver Nuggets on a run to close the gap right before halftime, to make it a more manageable deficit coming out in the third quarter. Peyton Watson was leading that charge. So this year, Peyton Watson has shown that he has some of that ability to get hot, to take over a game, if you will. That's another way of describing it. Peyton Watson has taken over stretches of these games. Tim Hardaway has taken over stretches of these games, and Jamal Murray has taken over stretches of these games and a lot of Nuggets games over the course of his career. Now you have 3 players who can affect the momentum of a game, and 2 of them are going to reside on your bench if everybody is healthy. So to think about what this could mean for the Denver Nuggets moving forward when everybody gets healthy, you have Jamal Murray with the starting 5 that can provide that. And when you go to the bench, you can honestly believe, and I'm going to pause for dramatic effect because this, I hope you're sitting down, the Nuggets could possibly extend leads when they go to their bench unit. Right? And you got a little taste of it early on in the season. But now you're seeing it on a more consistent basis and thinking about now that once everybody gets even more time between now and the end of the season, hopefully the Denver Nuggets get healthy and they're whole again and they can work back on their regular rotations and get the right combination of players. The idea that the Denver Nuggets in a postseason series can take what has emerged with Peyton Watson, what Tim Hardaway has brought to the group, and of course, don't forget Jonas Valanciunas when he returns. Suddenly, you have a bench unit that can take what Jokic and Murray do and build on it. Build on it. Not survive, add to it. The depth of this Nuggets team is going to be better off for this stretch without Nikola Jokic. Nobody wants to play without Nikola Jokic, right? If you could wave a magic wand, you don't want Jokic to get hurt. But you're seeing all these guys thrust into the limelight, and to their credit, they're performing. But they're not always going to be in these roles. Tim Hardaway is a bench player. When everyone is healthy, Peyton Watson comes off the bench as well. Is he going to be a 30-point-a-game guy when Jokic comes back? No, not consistently. But those 3, 4, 5-minute stretches that we've seen over the past couple of weeks where Peyton Watson can take over a game going against the opposition's bench unit, he might be able to do some of that. Tim Hardaway could do some of that. That's what I think the big takeaway from this stretch is, because it's not that the Denver Nuggets are beating the best teams in the league during this stretch, to be fair. But could you say that New Orleans' best lineup is better than a bench unit of the Lakers or the Spurs or even the Thunder? That's who Peyton Watson's going to be matching up against. You want Nikola Jokic back. The best version of yourself is with Jokic on the floor. But it's very encouraging for already a team that we thought was deeper than any Nuggets team since the bubble. And now you're saying, because of these last couple of weeks, man, could they possibly be better than even they looked at the beginning of the year? Take your thoughts. 719-247-1313. There is news regarding Nikola Jokic's rehab and recovery, which is also good news. So it's a good day if you're a Denver Nuggets fan, and I would like to hear from you if you are that. 719-247-1313, just getting going on this Wednesday edition of Drive Time Sports on Extra Sports 1300 and 740 KVOR. Speaking of the Denver Nuggets, especially one Jamal Murray, today is your last day to vote for the NBA All-Star Game. NBA All-Star voting presented by Xfinity. You can vote today on NBA.com or the NBA app using your NBA ID. Today, this final day of voting, your vote is worth triple. Oh, I got triples now of the Nova. So you vote for Jamal Murray or whatever Denver Nugget you want to vote for. It counts as 3, and we'll see where it gets. I do not expect Jamal Murray to be named a starter, which I don't know that I don't remember the last time I heard somebody be inducted into the Hall of Fame in the way they describe them as a 5-time NBA All-Star starter. I mean, it would be a nice feather in his cap for this year. But the important thing is Jamal Murray needs to get to the All-Star game. And obviously, this is the first wave if the fans vote him in. I would be very surprised if he has enough votes to be one of the Western Conference's top 5 vote getters. But the way he is playing, especially now with Jokic out, I don't know how you can keep Jamal Murray off the All-Star team. I don't. If you're an NBA coach, if you're an NBA player, the kind of the second wave of voting, I don't know how you can look at what Jamal Murray is doing and say, yeah, he's not an All-Star. This is the best season he's ever had. So make sure you cast your vote for the NBA All-Star game. Somebody joining me now that knows a thing or two about making all-star games in his given sport because he was a regular at the Pro Bowl in the NFL. He is a Pro Football Hall of Famer. He holds NFL records for return touchdowns, punt return touchdowns, and also has the single-season record when it comes to return touchdowns. Of course, when I throw out those accolades, I'll throw on top of it Bears legend, and then you got to know that it's Devin Hester, who joins me on behalf of Gridiron Greats and Southern Recipe Pork Rinds. Devin, pleasure to have you, man. How are you? It is my pleasure, and I happen to be at a establishment in California this weekend, and I'm watching that Bears-Packers game, and suddenly I see Devin Hester sitting comfortably watching his Bears. You looked more comfortable than I'm sure you were. How was that, watching that Bears-Packers game this weekend? And right now, teams that Devin Hester starred for are having a pretty good go of it. You have the Bears, a couple wins away from getting to a Super Bowl. Of course, the Canes in a few days will have a chance to win a national championship. I will ask you the impossible, Devin Hester. Which one do you want more? And in Miami, both have obviously been remarkable stories on the college football side. All the debate about whether Miami should even be in the college football playoff. And now, look, they have a chance to knock off those juggernauts from Bloomington, Indiana. I'm curious, when you watch this Miami team, Malachi Toney, does he remind you of yourself in any way? Mm-hmm. And you could say that a little bit too of Caleb Williams. How special is that guy for the organization that you meant so much to in your NFL career? Devin Hester, Pro Football Hall of Famer, my guest. Of course, during your career, I mean, every play you made in the kicking game was a huge momentum shifting play, game changing type play. And we're talking about Malachi Tony and what he does for Miami, Caleb Williams for Chicago. But like, there's the athleticism and there's the gifts to be able to do something like that. But then there's the mentality, right? I mean, where does that come from? You had it obviously in a big way. These guys kind of seem to have it. The ability to not only create big plays with your abilities, but also do it at the most important part of the game. Where does that come from? Mm-hmm. Pro Football Hall of Famer Devin Hester, my guest, appearing on behalf of Gridiron Greats and Southern Recipe Pork Rinds, which I want to get to here shortly. I'm curious your perspective on the NFL trying to do the safe thing, trying to look out for the safety of the players, but at the same time recognizing how exciting kick returns can be. I'm curious, when you see these rules and when you watch games on Sundays, what do you think you would do? Would Devin Hester have scored more touchdowns, fewer touchdowns? I mean, what's your takeaway from these new kickoff rules? Mm-hmm. Mm. What is that? And that's scary to think about for opposing teams, especially Packers, Lions, Vikings, the teams that you played so often, because I will never experience anything like this. What is that feeling? You're talking about a punt return, but it applies to kick returns as well. When you break it and you're like, I'm gone. Like, what is that feeling like? Because there's a lot of traffic, right? There's a lot of bodies flying around you. And maybe early on, you don't quite know if you're going to break it. But once you do, I mean, what is that feeling like? Something that you experience quite a bit over your career? Hmm. Uh, let's talk about what you're doing, Devin, with Southern Recipe Pork Rinds, the 17th annual Pork Rind Appreciation Day just happened. So tell me what you're doing with the fine folks there at Southern Recipe. Is Devin Hester a big fan of pork rinds, and what would be the go-to flavor? My man. All right. So when you win, talking to listeners now, if you win, then make sure that your lifetime supply is in sweet barbecue flavor. Just a pro tip there from Devin Hester. And of course, Southern Recipe Pork Rinds is supporting Gridiron Greats Assistant Fund. This was, did Coach Ditka start this? I know he's been huge in this, but being in that Bears family, tell us about this, because I think it's a great way for people to kind of repay and support athletes like you and many others who entertained us every Sunday for a number of years. Talk about Gridiron Greats. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. A phenomenal cause. Gridirongreats.org is the website. You can go and find out everything you need to know about that. And then, as Devin said, porkrinds.com to go and get registered to win that trip to the Super Bowl next season. Don't worry, you don't have to. And I'm sure we would. If you won tickets to this year's game, you would rearrange your life to make it happen. But you'll have plenty of time if you win to make your plans for LA next season, and then added bonus, lifetime supply of pork rind. So speaking of travel plans, so Chicago on Sunday and Miami on Monday, are those the travel plans of Devin Hester? Are you going to be in person for both of these games this weekend? Mm. All right. How close will you be to Michael Irvin? All right. So we will see you. We will see you, and we will expect you. It might be a fool's errand, but to try and match the energy of the playmaker on that Miami sideline. I don't know anyone can, and that's what makes a playmaker special. But what a cool moment for a great program that we grew up, that brand, the U of Mario Cristobal and Carson Beck and Malachi Tony, and that defense. Man, that defense is good. Looking forward to seeing them perform against Indiana on Monday. And Devin, really appreciate the time today, man. I hope we get to do it again soon. Yeah, it's my pleasure. That is Pro Football Hall of Famer, Bears legend, Miami legend, Devin Hester, my guest here on Drive Time Sports. Man, is he not living his best? Like it's almost like, remember when it wasn't that long ago when we had Avs win a title, followed by the Nuggets. We had Jokic MVPs. We had Nathan McKinnon MVPs. Like Devin Hester's kind of in that, what did Dwight Schrute call it? Perfection schlag. When it comes to sports, Devin Hester recently put into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, which, if you've listened to this show, I have been going to the mat for Devin Hester to be a Hall of Famer. I think it took too long, but I'm glad that he's in. So he has that recently, and now he has the U back in the national championship game and the Bears as one of the top seeds in the NFC. It's good to be Devin Hester, just in general, but especially now. Great to have Devin on. Again, porkrinds.com. Get entered for your trip to the big game in LA next year. And gridirongreats.org to support that organization. As we mentioned, Coach Ditka, this was really his brainchild to help extend the health coverage for these NFL players because the NFL, it didn't go far enough. They didn't offer lifetime coverage. So gridirongreats.org is the other place to go. We'll stick with football. Coming up next, Sean Payton on the debunking the myths of the NFL playoffs. You want to listen to one of Sean Payton's newest things. That's next here on Extra Sports 1300 and 740 KVOR. Broncos and Bills in the divisional round on Saturday. The Broncos have started their preparation, and we are going through, what advantages and disadvantages do the Broncos have against the Buffalo Bills. And this is a great time for Sean Payton to do something that he likes to do every now and again, and that's correct those of us football dullards that don't have the level of football intelligence that he does. And he, every once in a while, finds that the bully pulpit that he stands at on a daily basis is a good chance to educate people. So, Sean Payton has decided to dispel the myths about what matters in the playoffs or what doesn't. One of the main things that people have brought up, yours truly included, you included, the fact that the Broncos have home field. Well, that has to be a big advantage for the Denver Broncos, right? Here's the Broncos head coach.
There's some myths relative to the playoffs. Home field's important relative to the crowd noise, but just look at the weekend we just had. I don't know what the numbers were. So I know our crowd will be fantastic. We've got to be ready to play our best game.
And this will be a reoccurring theme here, but because Sean Payton talked about it right away, what matters more than home field, than short week, than long week, than crowd noise, than all of this ancillary stuff that we talk about? Who the better team is, who plays better, right? Ultimately, that's what Saturday is going to decide. Who's better, Denver or Buffalo? That's the way that sports usually works. But all of these things that we talk about, like home field, is supposed to make the Denver Broncos a better version of themselves and make the Buffalo Bills a lesser version of themselves. But, look, it matters. Here's the thing about Sean Payton in these things. Is it the most important thing? No. Home field advantage does not ultimately decide every NFL game. And he knows that, you know that, I know that. Nobody's saying, but it's just a thing that the Broncos have on their side. That if you expect the game to be close, would help the Denver Broncos. But there's another thing that Sean Payton is doing with these, and it's sending messages to his team, right? That first one. Sending a message to his team that it does not matter if you're playing at home if you don't do what I'm telling you we need to do to win the game. Right? To not be fat and happy being at home all week and just watching Buffalo and Buffalo has to travel, you don't, all that kind of stuff, just taking for granted that that's going to go in your favor. So it's Sean Payton being a little bit of a curmudgeon. It's Sean Payton trying to prioritize what truly decides these playoff games. There's some real knowledge being dropped in a way here. And then also sending a message to his team that they can't relax because they have home field or they had a bye week or anything like this. So there are more myths. Would you like to hear myth number 2? Well, whether you do or not, here's myth number 2 from Sean Payton.
The rest is important, but that doesn't, the myth number 2 is that ensures a fast start. It doesn't. You understand this. We're playing a team that's coming off one of their biggest wins in the last 10 years. And so we've got to earn a fast start.
And here he's veering out of his lane to get to one of his big keys for this game on Saturday. Because I don't think the week of rest, what we're saying it gives the Denver Broncos is a fast start. It's giving them the ability to heal up a little bit, to avoid injury, further injury if they're banged up. In fact, the Broncos are getting Dre Greenlaw back this week. So, now I don't think anybody's saying that the rest means the Broncos are going to get off to a fast start. That's just Sean Payton's way of saying, hey, I'm going to get in one of my keys to this game, which is getting off to a fast start. But you've heard this before. Rest is a weapon. And for Josh Allen in particular, to get banged up the way he did against Jacksonville and have to turn around and play another game just a few days later, that is a disadvantage for him. How much does this matter? How much does this ultimately tip the scales in the Broncos' favor? I don't think it does either. But it's another thing. What you're trying to do here, and per our conversation yesterday on this topic, I think what you're doing as a fan, really not just of the Broncos, but of any team, but especially the ones that the perception is that they are underdogs. You want to add up as many variables as you can that go in your team's favor to where you can add it up and say, that pushes my team over the top. So home field, rest, they matter. They may not be the be-all, end-all, but they're just another couple of things that you can put in the Broncos column as you're trying to list the things that are in Buffalo's favor and Denver's favor. So myth is that rest leads to a fast start. I don't even think that's a myth. I don't think people say that. But this is Sean Payton taking this conversation and twisting it into the way conversation he really wants to have. And now here is myth number 3 that Sean Payton wanted to dispel.
Myth number 3, postseason experience is important. Myth number 3. Obviously, they played in it, but historically, when you go back and look at teams and records and you look at rosters, now there's about 8 of these myths, but you hit one of them.
Now I know what you're thinking. First and foremost, are we going to hear the other 5 myths? That's what the press gathered in Denver wanted. Sean Payton not doing it. Sean Payton's not going to list all the myths. He's just going to use a question that he doesn't like and will use the myth thing as a deflection to get to what he ultimately wants to get out. Now, he could just sit up there and say, here are the things that don't matter. But this is Sean Payton we're talking about. And if he can use it to send messages, show how smart he is, and also make reporters look bad, then that is a win-win-win for Sean Payton. Why don't you just give us the rest of the myths? No, because I'll save them until a question I don't like, and then I'll say that that's a myth. Experience matters. That is the most of all that Sean Payton you heard him say, that's the most nonsensical. You cannot tell me that playoff experience doesn't matter. Does the most experienced team always win? No. But experience matters, because I could counter that with Jared Bednar of the Avalanche, just the first guy that popped into my head that has spoken on this, talking about the scar tissue that builds up with teams that go through the wars of the playoffs year in and year out, and how better they are because they went through that. I mean, that's It's silly. Of course, experience matters. Sean Payton is just, you know what he's doing. And it's fine, right? He wants to be there motivating his team, getting out the message he wants to. And there he went kind of the other way. The first two were like, hey, these are advantages for your team. And he's saying no. No, they're not necessarily. And then that third one, he went the other way because that's a big talking point when it comes to why Buffalo's going to win this game. Because they've been through it year in and year out for a number of years, whereas the Broncos just made, a guest appearance last year and were out as quickly as they got into the postseason. Experience absolutely matters. And it is on the Buffalo Bills side. What you have to decide is what Sean Payton calls myths. I call X factors or variables. You have to decide whose side of the ledger those variables go on. And when you add everything up, does that ultimately make the difference for the Denver Broncos? They do not have the experience advantage over the Bills. I would also argue they don't have the desire advantage. You can't replicate, and it's not their fault. You can't replicate how desperate the Buffalo Bills are to get out of the AFC and finally get to a Super Bowl. Broncos can't do that. They could be desperate. They could be hungry. They can't match what Buffalo has in that regard. So what does matter in Sean Payton's mind? What will decide Saturday's game? You'll hear that next. Welcome in hour 2 on this Wednesday. Great to have you. A reminder, you can watch the show on a daily basis. Many of you already doing that. I very much appreciate it. But if you're looking for it on a daily basis, it's fairly easy to find as long as you follow Extra Sports 1300 and 740 KVOR on social media, and really any social media platform, because we stream the show live every day on Twitter, on Instagram, and on Facebook, and on YouTube. So if you follow either one of the stations that this show airs on, you can watch the show live if you so choose. And while you're there, like, subscribe, and most importantly, comment, because this is an interactive experience. But it's only interactive if you interact with me. So drop a comment while you're watching the show on social media. I'll get to it over the course of the program. So if you're just tuning in, you missed out on Sean Payton giving a dissertation on the popular myths that surround playoff football and what matters and what doesn't. He also chastised a reporter for saying attacking downhill. So Sean Payton is in a mood. So, okay. So he says home field advantage, rest, and playoff experience don't matter. Okay. I disagree. I think he knows that those things do matter. They are not the be-all, end-all. They do not trump the X's and O's and the execution of his team. And that was the general point of that myths dissertation. And I understand. So what does matter in Sean Payton's mind? What matters, or for you and I, what matters more than home field, than rest, than playoff experience? Here's Sean Payton. Obviously, you look at Buffalo, and the first thing that stands out is their quarterback. And Sean Payton talked about something that, even though we all know Josh Allen has, it's maybe one of his lesser talked about skills. Here's Sean Payton.
And he's probably first in the league in, second act explosives, where he climbs, moves, and then tracks somebody. So there's a lot that goes into that relative to defending them.
So what is that? Because, yes, that is something that Josh Allen does quite a bit. And it exacerbates the frustration of opposing teams when Josh Allen does that. So the two most important things you need to do with a quarterback like Josh Allen, who can do what Sean Payton just mentioned, if you get to him, you have to finish the job. You have to get him down to the ground. That is the task. I fully expect the Denver Broncos pass rush to get to, quote unquote, Josh Allen. Do I think that they can consistently put him on the ground and end the play and sack him? That's what's a little bit dicier. So first and foremost, pass rush, when they get home, they got to grab Josh Allen and pull him down to the ground. They can't let him step out. They can't let him evade. Step back, step forward, step to the side. Just stand there and let a defender fall off of him. How many times do we see a guy go for a tackle and he just falls off of Josh Allen? That can't happen on Sunday. But the second thing that has to happen is that for a team like the Broncos that love to play man-to-man, with Pat Surtain being the best corner in the game, you have got to cover for the entirety of the play. Josh Allen's ability to keep plays alive, and what Sean Payton is talking about there, it's his passing. He didn't mention Josh Allen's ability to run after a play breaks down. He's talking about Josh Allen's ability to stay on his feet, keep a play alive, and still throw the ball. You have to stay on these Bills receivers until you know for a fact the play is over, and it's difficult to know that when your back is turned to him. And I hesitate to call it like an issue or a problem, but it's an interesting aspect of going against this Buffalo team, and it is the same as it was last year. It's almost better for the Broncos defense to match up with a team with a bona fide number one go-to receiver in the division. Even if it's at tight end, Bowers, Travis Kelce, Jamar Chase for Cincinnati. It's better for the Broncos defense if they have one of those guys, even if they're all world, even if it's Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson. Because Pat Surtain can shut them down. And it could take away one half of the field. And it can take away your most important option. The Bills don't have that. The Bills don't have a guy. Stephon Diggs is in New England now. That used to be their guy. It's not anymore. You don't know who Buffalo is going to target. And that's part of where the creativity of Joe Brady as a play caller comes in. Does make the Broncos' job easier when Vance can say, Pat Surtain, see that guy that has been with you at the Pro Bowl for the last 3 years? Go cover that guy. Right? If you're Denver now, you're like, who do we want to take away? I think it's a tight end. I think that's who Surtain's going to be matched up against. I don't think any of these receivers, with all due respect, are worthy of the Surtain treatment where Surtain just spends all his time worrying about taking you away. It's not a problem, but it's an interesting wrinkle that allows the Buffalo Bills, they'd be like, just take, for instance, if they're playing Cincinnati. Not a bad example because of T. Higgins. Minnesota. Pick your team with one elite guy that Surtain's going to absolutely cover, and maybe the gap between that guy and the next most talented receiver is a wide margin. So you're like, okay, Riley Moss can cover that guy. T. Higgins is not that guy. Now you put Pat Surtain on that, and in order for that offense to be successful, they're still going to have to try and test Pat Surtain. You're already admitting defeat if you're not throwing it to your best player just because Pat Surtain is on him. Well, with Buffalo, because they don't have that guy, Josh Allen and Joe Brady can just find number two and say, we're not throwing into that guy. And they don't have to be successful. Right? If you're Minnesota, if you don't throw it to Justin Jefferson, your ability to move the ball down the field greatly decreases. With Buffalo, look at this wide receiver core. Is there any one guy that you're like, oh, that dude's head and shoulders above everybody else? No. The Buffalo Bills can get by with wide receiver 1, 2, or 3. So it's a nice problem if you want to call it a problem, it's a nice one to have. if you're the Denver Broncos. Oh, we're not facing an elite receiver that we can put our elite corner on. But it is a wrinkle that Denver has to deal with against a team like Buffalo, as opposed to Kansas City that has the guy that they're always looking to. Raiders the same way with Bowers. They're always going to look to him. If they were to play Minnesota, it would be Justin Jefferson, right? But Josh Allen's ability to keep a play alive and stick with and not take off, that's the evolution of Josh Allen, right? He doesn't immediately take off now. He's going to hang in there, and he's going to try and find a receiver. So whether you're Pat Surtain or Riley Moss or Jaquan McMillan or Riley Moss or Jahdae Barron or Riley Moss, you have to make sure that you stay on your receiver throughout the entirety of the play and hope that your pass rush doesn't just get home, but brings Josh Allen down to put an end to the play. So that's Josh Allen, the passer. Josh Allen is also an integral part in the Bills' rushing attack. And the Broncos have brought in some reinforcements on that side of things with Talanoa Hufanga and Dre Greenlaw, who will play on Sunday. Sean Payton was asked whether getting Dre Greenlaw and Hufanga were because of how the Buffalo playoff game went last year.
We were looking to improve our team, and man, we knew we were playing a real good team a year ago, and so there were a lot of things that that we felt coming away from a game like that, hey, we're not there yet, but we need to improve. Certainly those are players that help us in that regard.
Look, and they're just upgrades from what they had. Right? So having Dre Greenlaw and Talanoa Hufanga help the Denver Broncos against every team in the National Football League. And Hufanga, who has been far more impactful this year than Dre Greenlaw. I think if you're looking for a defensive player that maybe I don't want to say isn't being talked about, but when you think of the Denver Broncos defense, you think Benito, you think Pat Surtain, maybe even you think Zach Allen and Jonathan Cooper before Hufanga. But Hufanga, I think, is going to be the spy on Josh Allen, because you have to spy him. You have to put somebody whose job it is watch Josh Allen. When he runs, you go after him, and when he passes, you stay back. Deter him from doing one or the other. I think that's going to be Hufanga's job for most of Saturday. But getting Dre Greenlaw back healthy, he has not been very impactful this year. Fits and spurts, been banged up. Of course, that was part of the story and part of why Dre Greenlaw was available. But it could be worth it to bring in Dre Greenlaw if he plays well and helps the Denver Broncos stop the Bills' rushing attack. So these two probably the two biggest acquisitions of the offseason for Denver, I think will have a big impact one way or another on Saturday's game. Because what they do is supposed to help the Broncos defend what Buffalo does best. And then there's the other side of the football. The pass defense of the Buffalo Bills. What does Sean Payton think about that?
There's principles they believe in, and they do a good job of staying on top of coverage. They disguise well. They'll give you fire zones. You have to be prepared for weak corner pressures. And so they're from that same tribe.
And that tribe meaning the Jim Johnson coaching tree. Sean McDermott coached under Jim Johnson, the legendary defensive coordinator who you probably think of as the Eagles' longtime defensive coordinator with Andy Reid. And Sean Payton has seen that scheme, those ideas a lot because McDermott used to be in Carolina. So there are no secrets about what Buffalo's going to try to do defensively. But it's a lot of things that give Bo Nix some problems, and I know that Sean Payton knows how to beat that kind of defense. Does Bo Nix and can Bo Nix execute against this defense? Because there are some similarities between what Buffalo does and what the Chargers did, which slowed down the Broncos, what the Chiefs did, that slowed down the Broncos, and what Jacksonville did, which altogether now slowed down the Broncos offense. 719-24-7. 1313. What are the most important things? What matters and what doesn't to you when it comes to this Broncos-Bills matchup? Does home field matter? Does rest matter? Does Josh Allen's ability to keep plays alive matter? What matters the most? What do you think is ultimately going to decide this football game? Be curious your thoughts at 719-24-7-1313. More Drive Time Sports coming up next on Extra Sports 1300 and 740 KVOR. Welcome back to the show. 719-247-1313 is the number if you'd like to interact. Coming up tonight, Air Force fans, on KVOR at 6:30, it will be the Joe Scott Show live from Colorado's Rib and Chop House. And on Extra Sports 1300 at 6:30 with pregame coverage starting at 6. It will be yours truly from Clune Arena calling Air Force and Colorado State, one of what could perhaps be some of the final meetings for a very long time, as the Rams are one of those teams that have gotten it in their head that somehow the new Pac-12 is going to be stronger than the Mountain West. I happen to disagree, but teach his own. So CSU is going to be in the Pac-12. And we saw this with football. One of the last times, perhaps for a long time, that you're going to play an in-state rival, which seems weird. Now, I think there's a greater chance that Air Force basketball, men's and women's, is able to continue playing CSU even when CSU moves to the Pac-12, because there's more non-conference games. There's more opportunities. I know, traveling with the women's team and calling those games, DU has been on the schedule quite a bit. Northern Colorado was on the schedule. CU. So is it going to be an every year thing? I don't think so. But I'll put it this way. I would expect Air Force to play CSU beyond this year in basketball sooner than you will see Air Force football play Colorado State. That I'm pretty confident of. So this could be the last meeting for a long time of the Rams and the Falcons at Clune Arena. Now, unfortunately, if you wanted to go, you can't. Because this coming down from the folks at Air Force, that there was, I want to get the exact wording right, but basically they were having issues with the water there. They don't have, unfortunately, due to a water line rupture in the athletics facilities area, tonight's game will be closed to the public. So given the opponent, that's extra disappointing. But, of course, out of the folks at Air Force's control. So all the more reason that, hey, if you are interested in tonight's game, probably want to listen to it here on Extra Sports 1300. It sounds incredibly self-serving. It's not, because I usually say, even during the broadcast, that it's best if you come out to the games. That's what is the best thing you can do. But sometimes you can't, and that's why we're here, and that's why I do these games. And tonight will be even more so a reason why we put these games on air, because it will be closed to the public tonight, but our coverage will begin at 6 o'clock with tip-off at 6:30 here on Extra Sports 1300, extrasports1300.com, and the Extra Sports 1300 app. So we've been talking a lot today about advantages, disadvantages for the Denver Broncos. What matters, what doesn't? Well, one thing that I don't know if this is one of Sean Payne's myths, I'd actually be curious if in one of the 8 myths is the idea of having a chip on your shoulder, being disrespected. Is that something that matters? I think generally in sports, it is. It is one of the wells that athletes and teams love to pull from. Nobody believes in us, So let's go out and show them. It's a powerful motivator. And the Broncos have had it. In fact, Bo Nix was asked about it and gave a very Sean Payton-like answer, which I don't fully believe, but for what it's worth, here's Bo Nix on whether it matters that the books had the Broncos as underdogs.
Not really. We don't really care. We've been underdogs before and, probably will be again in the future. But I think good things happened to that last team that was an underdog.
T-shirts were made, if I recall, by Bo Nix for a great cause. Here's the problem, though. They're not underdogs anymore. The line has flipped. The Broncos are now favored to beat the Buffalo Bills. So there goes that talking point. Bye-bye. Broncos aren't being disrespected. They're the favorites. And I say that with tongue firmly planted in cheek because it's not about the sports books. It's not about Vegas. It's about widely held perception where the sports books can be a window into that. But trust me, there are many other avenues that the Broncos can go down and find that despite being at home, despite being the number one seed, that people, yours truly included, believe that Buffalo is better and going to win the game. Why? Because I think that Buffalo, all told, is a better football team. So the word underdog is derived from sports betting, right? Broncos don't have that anymore. They're not the underdogs. They're the favorites. But in a more truer sense, they are underdogs. And we'll find out when everybody nationally rolls out their predictions for the weekend. But I do very much get the sense that if you polled America, that more people would take the Bills than the Broncos. Because the perception is the playoff version of the Buffalo Bills and the best version of the Buffalo Bills, which the playoffs require them to be, is better than the best version of the Denver Broncos. And that's what I'm saying, and that's what a lot of people are saying. I think that the Bills have a gear that they can hit that I don't know if the Broncos can. And part of it is not the Broncos' fault. They just got here. The Buffalo Bills have been going through this for years going into the playoffs. And the way that Josh Allen has elevated his game, I've seen it a lot. I have not seen what the Broncos are fully capable of in the postseason. And I'm going with my eyes. I'm going with what I have seen about what the Bills can be at their best and what the Broncos can be at their best. But part of the best version of the Denver Broncos is them believing that they are being doubted. And they are. Whether Vegas says that or not, they are the underdogs in this game from a perception standpoint. They wouldn't be against any other opponent they could have possibly faced in round two. That's only Buffalo. Would they be perceived as the underdog? I truly believe that. I think people, whether it would be Pittsburgh, certainly, the Chargers, and I even think in many ways the Texans. But the Bills are that one team that even though they have a 6 next to their name in terms of their seeding, the perception is they're a better team than Denver. But here's the opportunity for the Denver Broncos. An opportunity that has come around every once in a while this season. They have a chance to show it again. That they're not underdogs. They're actually one of the elite teams in the NFL. And in that way, what's been the theme of the week on the show? Of course, it's the Bills. It has to be this match. This has to be the matchup. And here's another one, because only playing Buffalo could the Broncos actually play the underdog card. As tired a trope as that might be, it would be the only matchup where they can do that. And I think it benefits the Broncos to have that mentality. If they're going up against the Steelers, I mean, you would be laughing at the Denver Broncos if they're like, oh, we're underdogs. No one believes in us. Nonsense. But with Buffalo, you buy it. With Buffalo, it's real. I'm sure Sean Payton would call this a myth, but the team with the chip on their shoulder is the Denver Broncos, and that might help. In fact, I would put it against the desperation level of the Buffalo Bills. What's more powerful? Or do they cancel each other out? The underdog chip on the shoulder of the Broncos, or the desperation of the Buffalo Bills to say this has to be the year we do it? Take your thoughts on the subject. 719-247-1313. More Drive Time Sports after this on Extra Sports 1300 and 740 KVOR. Brett's trying to get me in trouble, everyone. But you know what? It's a fair question. Brett on the text line at 719-247-1313. Who are you pulling for? Who would you like to see win? And don't pull this I have to be a neutral journalist card. I won't. But what I'm about to say is going to sound like a non-answer. I'm kind of good either way. Because I know I'm one of those terrible Chiefs fans that only want pain and suffering for Broncos fans. That's not true. Some of the closest people in my life are Bronco fans. I never want the Broncos to be successful at the detriment of the Kansas City Chiefs. But Chiefs are out of the mix here. Knowing how fun this job and just living here can be when there's that playoff energy, like with the Avs and the Nuggets. So it would be fine for me if Denver won. I would not be upset if Denver won at all. However, the better story is Josh Allen. And you have to admit that. I'm not saying that you need to root for Josh Allen. No. Don't do that. Not if you're a Broncos fan. You don't care about the Josh Allen story. But if you are not a Broncos fan, you have to acknowledge that the better story, the more enjoyable thing to happen would be for Josh Allen to win the Super Bowl. Right? Is there any one player and one franchise in this tournament that more people would be rooting for if they don't already have a rooting interest than Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills? I think public sentiment would be for a Bears-Bills Super Bowl. And the best story, and I'm not just talking about the best story in terms of what I would be talking about on this show, but there are stories that we love as sports fans and love to see play out. John Elway winning the Super Bowl was one of them. Josh Allen, how is Josh Allen winning that much different than when John Elway won? Think about the number. It hasn't been in the Super Bowl. But how much heartbreak has Josh Allen and that franchise gone through? Here's the thing. If you're trying to decide, if you're a casual or a neutral, the Broncos story is just beginning. The Bills story may be ending. If the Broncos lose on Sunday, you can have... I don't think that the level of hope you would have moving forward would take that big of a hit. Right? Especially if you're also a fan of the Avalanche and the Nuggets, because you know that it takes a lot. You don't just show up, run the table, and win the whole dang thing. Progress is not a straight line. It's fits and starts. It's seeming like you backtrack. Well, the Broncos have made progress from last season. If the Bills don't win it this year, and I thought that 2 years ago that it was the Bills, well, they have to win it this year or they may never win it. Right? They had Kansas City coming to their place. And a supposed lesser version of the Kansas City Chiefs I thought that was the year where if Buffalo didn't go to the Super Bowl, they weren't going to go to a Super Bowl anytime soon. And yet 2 years later, all of this happens because what was I assuming? Well, Joe Burrow. Oh, Lamar Jackson, Kansas City. Right? The confluence of events that have transpired to give Buffalo the path that they currently have. No one could have foreseen this. And so in that way, perhaps the football gods have actually smiled on the Buffalo Bills because it is wide open for them to take this thing. They're the most experienced team. They are arguably the most talented team. They have the best quarterback. No Lamar, no Mahomes, no Burrow. The path is there for Buffalo. And I really think that if not this year, we may be waiting a very long time for Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills to get to a Super Bowl. So what would be better? What would warm my heart more? If that's what you're asking, it would be Buffalo winning, but not just this game. Because it would be unsatisfying if the Bills beat the Broncos and eliminated the Broncos to take that away from this state only to turn around and lose in New England the week after. Like, that is the worst case scenario. If Buffalo wins, they better win the whole thing, or they better at least get to the Super Bowl. Right? So when I say that the better story or the thing that would be cooler would be Josh Allen winning this game and then winning the next one and going to Santa Clara. Josh Allen simply winning this game and then bowing out 1 week later, that sucks. That sucks for everybody, unless you're a New England or Houston fan. So you want to boil it down to what would be better? Buffalo winning this game on their road to going to the Super Bowl would be the better thing. I knew Brett wasn't going to be satisfied with my answer. Brett texted, I just asked Google, what is a synonym for I'm okay with either team winning? The result was I'm pulling the neutral journalist card. I am not. I promise you I am not. In fact, if I were going journalist, which I'm not a journalist, but if I were going work, it would be the Broncos. It is unequivocally better for my job if Denver keeps going. I'm a local sports talk show in Colorado. Independent of that, the better story is Josh Allen. The better story is the Bills. The feels would be more with the Buffalo Bills. And even if you're rooting for the Denver Broncos, I don't want you to change your mind, nor should you, but you have to understand that. But you should look at it as, well, our team's going to spoil that. In the 90s, it looked fun what the Cowboys were doing to the Bills. It's looked fun doing what Kansas City has done to Buffalo the last few years. If I'm a Broncos fan, I want some of that. I want to be the team that's adds to the heartbreak in Buffalo, that keeps Josh Allen from getting. I want in on that. That should be something that's embraced by Broncos fans, but also the Broncos. We know athletes are looking for every little bit of psychological edge and a boost. How about that? Probably if you gave them true serum, everybody that doesn't isn't a fan of a team in the AFC East and doesn't root for the Denver Broncos, wants Buffalo to win? Would love to see Josh Allen come into Denver and win? Use that as a motivator if you're the Denver Broncos. Spoil this storybook, right? Ruin the storybook ending. But yeah, Buffalo winning's the better story. Buffalo winning is more fun if I try to remove my own selfish, professional goals. But I think come Monday on this show, I'll be good either way. It's just if Buffalo's going to win, they better go win the whole thing. Take your thoughts if you want to jump in here in the last few minutes. 719-247-1313. I'm asking the neutrals. If you're a Buffalo fan, if you're a Denver fan, that's not who I'm asking. If you are truly a neutral party, who would you rather see win? 719-247-1313. This coming in from the 719, you think the Jags beat up Josh Allen, Denver Broncos are going to finish the job, and in the off chance that Denver loses, Josh might not be able to play another game. He might be too beat up by then. And that last part, I would be legitimately worried if I'm a Bills fan. I would be. I mean, how much punishment can this guy take before it's just too much? Is it Sunday or this Saturday? Is it next Sunday? Is it Super Bowl Sunday? At what point does all this punishment that Josh Allen is taking hit critical mass to where you're not getting Josh Allen playing at the level you need him to win? And that is what you bring up, though, is a big key. If you're Denver, if you're Vance Joseph, you have to be telling your guys, we got to hit him. Vance Joseph is not Greg Robinson. If you understand what I'm not Greg Robinson. Greg Robinson. Bounty Gate guy. Vance Joseph's not that. But it's part of football. And the Denver Broncos are not going into the game looking to hurt Josh Allen, like injure him, like galooly him. The idea is let's hurt him, like let's hit him. And that would apply if Josh Allen was 100% healthy or 1% healthy. But that has to be part of it. The Broncos have to live in the Bills' backfield, and they have to deliver as many body blows to Josh Allen. He's this big heavyweight, right? You're not going to knock him down with one punch. It's going to be a gradual. Here's a movie reference. Josh Allen is Ivan Drago. The Broncos defense has to be Rocky. They have to just keep landing body blow after body blow after body blow because there is no way that the Broncos are just going to come in, because that's what you were fooled into thinking last year, right? Bo Nix over the top with Troy Franklin. Boom, Broncos hit the Buffalo Bills in the mouth. And then what happened? It was all Buffalo after that. Josh Allen is a microcosm. You hit him early in the game on the first drive, so what? You got to keep at him. And we'll see if the Broncos can on Saturday. Brett says, how dare you imply there would be a bounty? Sean Payne would never do such a thing. You sure about that? Sure about that? That's why. Talk to you tomorrow.